The bounty hunters. I am feeding people to the trees in Rimworld. The flesh grove must grow. Megara placed her helmet on the stand and stares at it. The standard issue LeBlanc Trooper armor and its fancier sister, the Honor Guard armor, were designed to be able to be removed piece by piece in any order and continue to function properly regardless of how many or how parts are on. She always removed her helmet last and looked into the mirrored faceplate as she lets her natural armor retract. She buzzes her wings for a moment to get the sensation back in and ruffles her hair. Short, white, and in a cute bob. She looks over the room and considers. She is a 15-second sprint in her armor away from her lord's room, a 7-second flight. The halls are large enough for her wings to fully deploy so she can reach her top speed. Of course, flying means she's down to her natural armor, which means that she'll have to be very swift to avoid being harmed herself. Unless her lord is in danger, then it will have to do. Hopefully with Axiom, it will suffice. The expanded containers had been what was needed to bring about her personal effects as she putters around her chamber and makes it more comfortable. A few mementos here or there, a few hidden weapons for her well-earned paranoia. She is the sergeant of her squadron. She has to be better. Speaking of being better, she has a report to make. She activates her communicator, and after a few moments of waiting, she offers them a salute. Divine Leader Kolgari was once a Snikt, but she has undergone a complete synth ascendance in accordance to her own personal religious beliefs. Divine Leader, I am prepared to make my initial report. Very good. Priorities first. Have there been any difficulties in incorporating into the ship or culture clashes? There have been no difficulties. However, there are several things of note, Divine Leader. Elaborate. There is a culture of sparring present. We have already witnessed our Lord face off against a Canador in unarmed combat. Neither was truly injured, but our Lord was not the victor. No damage beyond a few already healed bruises, and the initial incident that led to the spar has now apparently been forgiven. They are a martial people. This is not unexpected. Secondly, and potentially concerning, is just how thoroughly Lord Slytherin has been culturally assimilated by his adoptive father. He has referred to a period of 10 years where he intends to train, develop a military career with skills, and then potentially return to LeBlanc in such a manner that without proper context one would think it a significant portion of his life. Reread his file, Sergeant. He came about his youthful appearance in the most honest way possible. He is truly just 16 years of age. When he says 10 years, he is referring to a span of time where the entirety of his life seems to fit into. Beyond that, and I doubt he has much memory at all, 10 years is all of time to him. He's aware of history and of the future to some extent, but he has yet to experience it for all that he's made it. Divine Leader Kolgari says, it's not uncommon in the young, truly young at any rate. Regenerative comas do tend to make age more a fashion statement. But it's not with him. Despite solving an ancient mystery, facing unimaginable threat, and comporting himself with grace, he is just a child that has enormous potential, connections to a growing force that's erupting like a star-going supernova, and if what I've read of his psychological profile is correct, is used to a big family and likely wants one again. Divine Leader Kolgari says with a quirk of her lips. Ma'am, am I being bred? I was going to send in a great-grandniece of mine. However, his injuries were caused by a Snikt, and it would be unwise at this point. His recovery has been nothing short of miraculous. But let's not push it too far. That was a yes, wasn't it? Do you want to be bred? There is something to be said for a man who wears his scars well. Megara admits. Well, there you go. Honor guard to honored wife are far from uncommon. In fact, many noble women will select their son's honor guard with such intent. Divine Leader Kolgari notes, Ma'am, are you? He was horrifically damaged by one of my own species. I may have left behind the weakness of my flesh, but I recall it nonetheless. I was one of several voices vouching for the Crystal Star. Divine Leader Kolgari states, My lady, did you once? I had the hunger, as it was called at the time. Its title shifts as rumor abounds, and none who walk through it truly wish to speak of it. I recall the mindset clearer than most due to my synthetic mind. So you are relieving your own guilt? No, I am serving the Empire by vouching for a course of action where I have unique insights. Divine Leader Kolgari says after giving Megara a reproving look. My apologies, Divine Leader. I am merely concerned about the potential political events surrounding my charge, Megara states. Oh, most understandable. After all the hurt young man trying so hard to be strong, it tugs at the heart, doesn't it? Divine Leader Kolgari notes. Divine Leader, if you would clue me in to what your plan is, then I could better serve you and the Empire come to a goal. Megara says, it's not hard, not in the slightest, Divine Leader Kolgari says. The Undaunted are doing a wonderful job in raising a young man into a warrior. I want to poach that. I want a warrior house to arrive and guard our borders, while making us look generous and wise and considerate. Little work, enormous potential benefit. And you do no think that this might damage relations with the Undaunted, Divine Leader? Megara asked. Sargent, I am doing this with the complete knowledge, permission, and approval of Undaunted Higher Command. The only condition is that we respect the choices of the child and do not poison the well against them. Poison the well? Human saying. Wells are clean water reserves that are considered sacrosanct. Poisoning the well, however, is a saying that means give a bad opinion of another before they can form their own. Divine Leader Kolgari states, that would be incredibly hard to do considering they rescued him from a living nightmare and empowered him. Megara says, yes, which means that they're being very calm and casual about this. Divine Leader Kolgari states, but why? We're outright trying to recruit one of their trainees for our own purposes, Megara asked. It's fairly well reasoned, actually. So yeah, basically their whole plan is easily described as poaching. But from the way their laws and our laws are set up, there's no conflict unless we go to war for some reason. Herbert explains over the holo projector. The small device lowering from the ceiling makes it look like he's in the room with them. Could you stop it with the high-pitched kitty voice? It's distracting, Pukey states. Actually, I can't. I took a bad hit on a recent mission, and I've been regenerated to pre-voice breaking. On the upside, if we need a choir boy, I can pull it off. How old are you now? 12 3/4. Balls freshly dropped, Herbert says, and Pukey blinks. I didn't need that information, Pukey says, and Herbert shrugs. You didn't? My wives did, and they reminded me of it, Herbert says before grinning. Although, my first time through 12, I would have committed gruesome crimes to get the kind of attention as I do now. So you're really not worried that a foreign power wants me? Slytherin asks. They can't legally take you unless you want them to. You're not apart or away from us without wanting it, and you're getting more from it. More? Well, think about it. We the Undaunted are a military polity where a person can come in, get great training, and then leave in what the galaxy considers an extremely short period of time. If you spend even 100 years with us, the investment is still considered short by a lot of standards. Still, we move fast by those standards too, so I consider it a wash. And what is it you're planning with me in long term? That's up to you unless you start gathering then giving out undaunted secrets, Herbert answers. The Undaunted have secrets? Sure we do. We've got all sorts of undercover missions, infiltration, and otherwise going on. The shot that forced me into my latest regenerative coma being from one. It's all over but for the crying. Don't worry. And oh, Mom, you had to kill some people, didn't you? That's need to know, and you do not need to know, Herbert replies. There's also things that we're working on or are trying to suppress. Things that are relegated to cognito hazards are generally things we discourage people from talking about. Didn't those things from Albrith get that classification? Slytherin asks. The pale generators, yes. A whole planet knows about them, though, so it's more like being polite. Think of it more like, do you want to run into that kind of madness again? A thing that forces you to look away as it listens to you and gets ready to blast you with lightning if you say the wrong thing? No, those things were disgusting even in wireframe. So keep quiet. Sure, they can be made again. But if you don't talk about them, then some random jerk can't overhear you and decide to be something very stupid, Herbert says, and Slither nods. So, less a secret and more just something not to bring up. Not around people who weren't there. There are different types of cognito hazards, some which are a lot more personal. I won't say anything more than there are such things, But if you run into those, there's going to be an NDA. Those are things we really don't want to spread, Herbert says, and Slytherin considers before drawing the conclusion of what he himself could do. Herbert watches as Slytherin's eyes twitch back and forth again and again. You're imagining just what level of damage you yourself could do, aren't you? Pukey asks as he puts an arm around Slytherin's shoulders. I could wreck this ship. I know where the supports are. I have access and knowledge of where the bombs and plasma are. I could shred the chain breaker, Slytherin realizes. Yep, which is why our policy on anything with mind control involved is to destroy the source, clean up the damage, categorize everything, and then keep quiet. Herbert explains. Huh, and what else do I need to keep secret? Well, the ghost metal and ghost cloth is already out in the open, so by the time it reaches you guys on the chainbreaker, we're fine with people seeing or hearing about it, Herbert says, and Slytherin nods. So there's no problem whatsoever if I dive fully into LeBlanc Noble Society? Not at all. They're trying to advertise, so are we, and you're the poor soul standing on top an ever-growing mountain of wealth, prestige, and power. I'm so sorry, young man. Okay, hearing a guy whose voice squeaks like that call me a young man is a little too weird, Slytherin says, holding up his hands and holding back a chuckle. This is the whole, labyrinth politics thing, isn't it? Yes, but the fun thing about mazes is that most of them are open at the top. Also, you can move through at your own pace, Herbert says, and Slytherin thinks. I'm also allowed to leave, aren't I? Slytherin asks. Yes, Herbert says, and Slytherin grows quiet. Then he looks up and smirks. So, I'm going to need help designing a crest, a symbol for the House of Slytherin. Slytherin says, and Pukey grins widely. Excuse me a moment, Herbert says, holding up a finger and running off. The hologram makes it look like he just charged through the nearest trophy case and vanished. What's he doing? Probably getting someone who, of course, I'd be honored to. A genial voice says, and Herbert races back in, followed by a middle-aged man with a spring in his step in a formal suit. Good afternoon, young lord. I am Sir Philip Bernard Masterson. A pleasure. Finally went for a healing coma hunt, old man? Pukey asked. I have indeed. I'm afraid that while my time with the Undaunted is nearly finished, I have further orders, Sir Philip says genially. Now then, young man, you are in position to found a noble house. Do you know what you will call it? I think just using my first name might be best, Slytherin says. Very good. Then your symbol should be something that relates well to you. Perhaps something you can use as a symbol of your strengths and struggles? Sir Philip asks. Wait. Slytherin considers before suddenly holding a hand up to the scarred half of his face. A good idea. Not quite. I think this, Slytherin says before waving his hand over his face. For a moment, his scars are covered in what looks like a mirrored half-mask. That would fit the aesthetics of LeBlanc and be unmistakably something of yours. Or perhaps white porcelain with 8 finger markings, as if you were holding it? Sir Philip asks, and Slytherin thinks. I would suggest a darker background for whatever banner you use. Perhaps a darker green to match the scales between the brown circles? Or perhaps even a full mimicry of your tail? No, that would be a little too gauche. A simple matte color with a border perhaps, with an undaunted symbol above or below your own emblem. If the mask is white, then sheer black would suit it well. Slytherin considers. Vanta black would really stand out, wouldn't it? Pukey teases. Isn't that the black so dark it literally stand out in sheer darkness? Slytherin asks. No, that's far too much. A more night black would be suitable. The space between the stars for the main color, with a border looking like a constellation and your half face peering out from the darkness. A protector from the stars, Sir Philip offers. The protector looking out from the stars, the slithering guardian from the shadows between. From out of darkness to bring light? Slytherin mutters as his eyes light up brighter and brighter. I like it. I really like it.